Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Brian and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
What's up?
Well, not bad, sir. I'm glad you could join me this evening for a very special podcast. At least I'm calling it special, and it's not special just because Ms. Berlin's not here. She's camping with her family. But I do appreciate you coming.
Well, I appreciate you hosting.
Well,
at Breaking Down Security World Headquarters.
That's right. We're just outside of Seattle here. So I understand you're having some, house renovation issues. Do we need to, call in the National Guard to fix your house or do anything like that?
That would help. Yeah.
What?
No, the only thing that's in its place is my desk. That's it. Everything else moved out. So yeah, we're doing some renovation. We're kind of pushed into it because of some water damage, but we decided to just go all out.
Why is it that all that stuff happens when you're on vacation?
Yeah, I know. It's it couldn't have happened while we were home so that we could just shut the water main off.
Right.
It had to happen while we were gone and probably was leaking for a few days.
Oh, hell. That's awful, man. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Life goes on, man.
True. Do you think it happened last winter and then it just finally, happened, or was it, Wolverines or something? I don't know what you have in Texas.
No, it just finally came to a head, I guess, at that moment. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that sucks. Are you guys living in your home? Or are you guys in a hotel or something while you're doing the renovations? How's that working?
No, we're in.
Oh, good.
We just moved upstairs.
Oh, okay. All right. Very cool. So I know you're busy. I'm busy. Going to go ahead and get started with our show this week. The idea of the podcast is all about social engineering this week. So this is something that, I'm not privy to. The only times I've ever tried to do social engineering, it has been less than ideal for me. Somewhat good, somewhat not. It's almost like the harder I try, the worse it is. So I can call up and be convincing about some things, and it might actually work. But when I'm actually trying to make something happen and be goal oriented, it doesn't work. Like I tried to call up and get the password for a SAN or something sometime that we were working at a data center. And I tried calling up and being the guy that, I'm the replacement and this guy went on vacation. It's going to be a couple of weeks and we're locked out and I can't get anything. They actually went through and, tried to get me to verify who I was. I was like, look, I don't have contract numbers, You need to give me access now, please. And they didn't give them to me because I was, that's what they should have done. They shouldn't have given it to me because that's what I was just trying to get the password reset or whatever. But it seems like the harder that I try to do something with regards to social engineering, the less effective it is. So that's how it goes. Have you ever done any social engineering yourself, Mr. Betcher?
Not in a professional manner.
Okay.
Yes. So no.
We know people like Joe Gray, and we had Christopher Hedneggy on, of course, and we did a show a little while ago about social engineering and the book he wrote, which we did for book club. But so we were presented with a very interesting show. One of our moderators, who goes by the handle on Slack as Director of InfoSec, came to me and she says, because she identifies as a lady, I have some audio from a call center that we have, because she works in a specific industry, and I'll let her talk about it. Well, actually, I should just bring her on right now because I don't know why I'm trying to do this. Welcome to the show, Director of InfoSec.
Good afternoon. How are you guys? Well, I guess I know how you guys are. You've already covered that.
I've been tripping over myself here, so I'm glad that I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're able to help us. We're going to call you Ann because that's what we want to do and not ruin your OPSEC. And I just want to say congratulations are in order for your promotion that you told us about. So I'm very, very happy that you got that promotion and kicking ass and taking names. So yeah, I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
Right on. Okay. So tell us a little bit about what kind of audio we're going to be hearing tonight and some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about.
Sure. I work in a mid-sized retail company, a few hundred people. We have a moderate call center. Depending on the time of year, it's somewhere between 100 and 200 people in size. And our busy time is actually more in the spring and fall, not so much the Christmas time. But we're retail and business to business, and we have a call center. And obviously, people call into call centers to place orders. And the audio that we have is interesting because it shows how I think simple it is to social engineer call center people who are trying to be helpful.
Very cool. Yep. So one of the things that I found interesting was that when you think about it, call centers are all about making sure that customers have the best experience possible when they call. The idea is they're there to solve problems. They're there to help. And in this case, being too helpful is what's going to have them killed, right? Or not killed specifically, but it's going to figuratively, yes, it's going to cause them detriment. That's what I was trying to say. It's altruism to their detriment in this case.
Yes, and it's worth remembering that we pay them to be that. I don't know if it's altruism since we pay them, but we pay them to be that the customer is never wrong. You need to answer every customer's question. You need to do it with a smile. It needs to be, right now, regardless of the day the customer is having, you need to make the customer's day better. And so this is what we train them for. This is what we pay them for. This is what we select for in the hiring process.
Right. And the metrics that you guys use for your call center is also built all around the experience of the customer, making sure that, you get 5 stars on your, on your survey at the end of the call. Did Bob do a good job of explaining what the issue was? Did Bob help me fix the issue? Did Bob keep me on hold for more than 10 minutes or something like that? And the call center people have certain metrics like, if you don't answer so many calls in so many minutes or, so many calls in an hour, that can be to the call center person's detriment, correct?
Yes, definitely. And I'm a strong proponent in, those metrics need to be living, and we need to review them. If we're not giving them enough time to do the job they're assigned to do, then we need to review those and make sure that we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not altruism in this case. You are right. They're getting paid to be they're getting kind of paid to be nice to people. But some of the examples I was thinking of before we did this was the pregnant woman needing help through the security door, or person on crutches. You've got we've got numerous Twitter stories out there from people who are doing social engineering attacks where I wish I'd had the link to that one where the lady was going through the building and she had her pregnant belly on and she was putting in bash bunnies and all these things in, after hours at a building that she was doing. But when you went through the audio, and we're actually going to go through some of the audio that she sent me. She's obfuscated some necessary parts to make sure that we're, not outing anybody or giving any actual information. But what was some of the things that surprised you about the audio that we're going to hear?
I think the main thing, and I have to admit, both myself and our chief operating officer, and also the manager of the call center, sat down together and listened to this audio, and especially the COO, who has a long retail background, and myself, before my recent promotion, I was the CSO, the Chief Security Officer. So everything from loss prevention to physical security to information security was in my purview. And so especially doing loss prevention and whatnot, I tend to be a very suspicious person. And she and I were practically yelling at the screen, "No, don't do it, don't do it!" As our call center people were giving out information. You could just see the train wreck coming, but
right.
Unfortunately, they weren't able to see the train wreck. So I think the surprising thing is that they just blissfully gave away information without ever stopping to think, "Hey, wait a minute, why does this person need this information given to them?"
Yeah. Okay. So what kind of training were you doing before with regards to your call center people and any kind of, social engineering? Were you doing anything at all, or was there certain types you were doing and this didn't cover it? What happened there?
So we actually have, I think, a fairly hardcore training program for all security awareness, including smishing, vishing, phishing, but we're training on what I would call your traditional scenarios, which the IRS calls demanding that you give up your social security number, or send them money, or they're going to arrest you tomorrow, right. Or any of the Microsoft technical support. You must have a virus. Etc. Everything that is traditionally heard, we were training on, and I had never, my failing, I had never considered the super subtle kind of phishing that I think you'll hear in the audio.
Okay.
So your training was focused around more protecting the company, right? And that's what the traditional InfoSec training is. But this is a little different.
Absolutely. Yes, this was protecting the customer, and I guess I had never really thought about how it goes downstream.
Right. Okay. I think this would probably be a good time to go ahead and do the part 1 and part 2. We have 5 audio pieces here, so we're going to do numbers 1 and 2. For those of you who are listening, it does sound a little accelerated. Don't adjust your,
Hang on. Before we play that, can you just briefly describe what we're going to hear? Like who's who in this
scenario? Kind of the setup. Yeah. Right. So what you have is you have multiple call center people here. The setup really is the setup to what I'll call the con is the bad guy is calling in. He is trying to place an order on the phone, and the only purpose behind, and the reason I sped up the first clip, the only purpose behind this whole long setup is that he wants a valid order number. Once he has a valid order number, he can then try to distinguish what other order numbers are likely to be valid and use those to pose as the customer to get the rest of the customer's information back.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and listen to number 1, and then we can talk about number 1, and then we'll do number 2 as well. So here we go.
Good morning. Thank you for calling Base. My name is Arasi. How can I help you?
Take an order.
Okay. Have you ordered with us before?
Yeah.
All right. Any chance, do you have your customer number?
I never ordered with y'all.
I'm sorry?
I never ordered with y'all. I don't have a customer number.
Oh, okay. You never ordered?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to create you an account here. Give me just a moment. What's the first name?
David.
And the last name?
Brown.
How do you spell that?
I can tell a brand. BROWN.
Brand, B-R-A-N-D?
Yeah.
Okay, and a good phone number for you?
212-887.
282-887. I didn't hear the last 4. All righty, and let's start with your billing address. What city?
New York.
I'll get that over to you. Alrighty. And did you know the items that you were looking at today?
Yeah. Wait.
And that's the Dixie songs?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other item?
That's it.
Okay. Give me just a moment. I'm going to pull up the credit card screen here. Okay, so everything with shipping is going to be $109.98. Let me pull up my screen here. All right, and I'm ready for the credit card number.
3722.
537.
5372.
Uh-huh. So, okay, and the expiration? 10.
Yeah.
And the 3-digit code on the back? Or, it says declined.
That's a brand new call. I got to call activated. That's what it already did. I'm going to call you back and call them up real quick and activate.
Okay, all right.
Can I look at the order number?
Yeah, that way you can call back and you can just pay for it. The order number is going to be 400.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was number one. So what did we learn from that? He has an order number now. He tried a credit card that was declined, quote unquote, said he had to activate it. And it was roughly $200. And so I've got questions. One, do you guys know if the credit card was actually legit credit card number or if it was stolen? Or, well, I mean, was it legit to a specific person who may be the spammer because he's an idiot? Or was it a stolen card? And was the address actually a legit address?
The address was a legitimate address. The credit card number, interestingly enough, would not have even passed checksum. So it would not have gone anywhere, but we don't tell, anyone, we don't tell the call center people why a credit card is declined. It's just declined.
Okay.
So we don't give out that information, but on investigation, the credit card was not a valid credit card. So all he was doing was looking to get the order number, and I did trim that order number down. In later takes, I didn't trim the order number down so you could hear what he was attempting to do. But in this case, I think there's a couple more things that stood out that, I think it's really easy to armchair quarterback when we're sitting here and we have all the time in the world and we know that something bad, we have more than foreshadowing here.
Sure.
So we're not handling hundreds of calls a day where everything goes exactly as expected. And, so I don't want to slight our call center people because I think they do largely an outstanding job and we really failed them in training. However, he said his name was David Brown, and she asked him to spell that, and he spelled it B-R-O-W-N. She didn't understand, and so she filled in B-R-A-N-D, brand, and he's like, yeah, sure, because he doesn't care, because this is never going to go anywhere anyway.
Right. Yeah. It seemed like he was actually, belligerent at one point, and I was like, oh, yeah, because, well, he wasn't belligerent, but he was definitely like shortened to the point, like he just wanted his, purchase order number. And then once he got that, then he was, gone. He had finished.
What time
Well, I
of
think
day?
also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, what time of day was this? Because it does matter when the call is made. He wants to call in when the call center rep is the most tired or the most hungry. If he calls
That's a good point. In this,
9 o'clock in the morning, they're going to be on their best, right? Mentally.
in this case, it was about 1400, about 2 p.m. local time.
Okay. Wow. Oh yeah.
So actually, maybe food coma time. Maybe we can go that way. They had just gotten back from lunch, and so looking forward to that 5 p.m. whistle. And I don't know if it had as much of an impact this time. I suspect, and this is just my personal suspicion, is that the belligerence, or I'll actually call it disappointment, that you hear from the customer is, maybe, and I actually think this gentleman is quote unquote good enough that the disappointment that you hear is to signal the customer service rep that they're not happy with the way this call is going.
Right.
So the customer service rep will become more compliant, and we actually get to hear this again in later calls, that he deliberately goes in frustrated. He's not happy with the call center, and so these people are going to bend over even further backward to try to make this a better day for him.
Right. So I don't want to say that this person was green or this person was a veteran. What's the average, experience level for your call center? Do you have people who are like super green all the way up to like people who've been there 20 years? Or, I mean, what's the average? Are we looking at like 5 to 7 years of experience?
I would say the tenure for most call center people is in the 2 to 3 year range. This person, unfortunately, was actually one of our trainers. She was been there for about 9 years.
Okay.
And she's actually no longer with the company now, but we'll cover that later.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and listen to number 2, and then we'll get that. I assume that this continuation, like he's called back in this case.
Right. So now he's calling back to extract. So he's going to use the order number that he had before, and he's going to guess around at some more order numbers. The call center rep is going to kind of fill in the blanks for him, and then he's going to extract more information from the about the end customer using this order number that he is now guessed at.
Right, because he's gaining reconnaissance. He knows what the format of the order number is in this case, so he can go, well, I know it's 8 characters, and if I increment it 1 or 2, then in either direction, I'm going to get a different order number.
Right. So we get to hear his what the actual payout is in this process now. The second call, well, I guess the payout is when he finally gets the customer's credit card from the customer, but this is kind of the payday as far as the information disclosure is concerned. So The first part was just get what I need, and the second part is now I want all the information I can extract.
Cool. All right, here he goes.
Thank you for this is Key. How may I help you?
Need to check on my order.
Okay. Do you have an order number?
001165358. I'm sorry, 011653.
Taking a minute to pull up here. Okay, you said 40653.
No, 11653.
Okay. 400-11653.
583.
583.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. For Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
That total was 254, if I'm mistaken.
Pardon me?
I told him it came to 254.
You ordered one set of the dogs and then a 32.
Yeah, how much was my total?
$82.97.
All right, can I give you my work phone number if my wife didn't give it to you?
Pardon me?
Can I give you my work phone number if my wife didn't give it to you?
Sure.
844-722. Is that the one she gave you?
Nope. 803-512.
803-512?
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay, and then go ahead and confirm your email.
I don't know which one that she used. Did she use Paul32@gmail?
No.
Thank you for this is Andy.
Sorry, I didn't catch that in time. Okay, so wow, that's really good. I mean, he managed to get first name, which used the email address, gave a phone number that may or may not have existed. There's a lot of information there that he just gleaned in that minute 33 seconds.
He also got the last name as well. I cropped the last name out because that is an actual customer, and it's a fairly unique name.
Okay.
So I cropped the last name out. However, he got first name, he got last name, he got the phone number, he got the order total, he got the correct order number associated with that order total. And he didn't manage to get the email address, but it almost doesn't matter, because now if you call the customer, if I call you and say, hey, Brian, I see that you ordered from us, and here's your order number, and this is what you ordered, and this was your total, and I'm calling your phone that you used, and hey, your credit card didn't go through. So can you read me your credit card again?
Right. Okay, so at this point, you guys somehow, I think we talked about this a little bit before the show started, but you said you have fraud or some kind of way of detecting that these are kind of BS calls. At some point, when did you guys raise the red flag? Did you guys call this an incident? I mean, how did you handle these kinds of calls?
Right. So this was a little bit new for us. Now, we do have several fraud detection companies that we subscribe to, and these companies aggregate from multiple companies. And when a credit card begins to be used fraudulently, they can, using their metrics system, they can look back and say the most likely place that there was a problem was here, and then call there and say, hey, you guys need to start an investigation. So that's what happened, is that one of our fraud detection companies called us and said, hey, we think there might have been fraud here. Can you go back and look at this? In this case, we actually didn't compromise the customer's credit card. This was one of those, I can promise, was kicked around in legal and operations and everywhere else. It's not really a reportable incident, because we didn't compromise the credit card. We didn't compromise anything that is controlled by PCI. So the customer chose to compromise that themselves. Right. Whether we contributed to it or not, the customer is the one that actually chose to do that. So I had to running security, I had to call the customer and have the unfortunate job of explaining to the customer that, we did something that we shouldn't have done, and we're terribly sorry, and how can we make this right, and so on. And I'll say that at the end of it, the customer was satisfied. They're still a customer, they still order from us, and everybody came out okay. There was no damage to the customer. Damage to us, the customer got their order for free. We ended up effectively paying for it twice. So unfortunate, but cost of doing business. Sure. But in this case, it is it wasn't what we would consider to be a reportable incident.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, with the information that this guy got, he would have been able to, take that information and go elsewhere, the white pages, the Spokios of the world, and gain additional information about where this person lived, address, other kinds of information like that, including maybe, social media or Facebook pages. This person just happened to be collateral in that. But it'd just be interesting to see how much Paul, quote unquote, is exposed to the internet if this person, So yeah. Okay. So
was this a target, or was this targeted at a specific person?
I think it was because it was derived from the order number information that he had received before. I don't believe it was targeted at anyone. It was just that person was unfortunate enough to have an order number that was close to the order number that he had gotten.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you mentioned like there's a cert or something like that where they collect indicators of compromise. So this guy's a serial offender of this. He calls up call centers and, gleans this kind of information regularly.
Yes, he does. And then the very first thing he does is run off and try to charge up about $3,000, $3,500 at other retailers. So where retailers are aggregating this information, very quickly, the fraud detection companies are able to spot it and go, oh wait, nope, that never happened. So that's why that's why the customer didn't end up losing anything from this. Not that they would, because the credit card companies would then go back after the retailer. But there was very minimal damage because it was caught quickly.
Right. I'm fascinated by the idea of, we talk about indicators of compromise for threat actors like, China and Russia and, companies that are doing things to other companies and whatever, but having an actual person who's a repeat offender that they tend to know about, I'm interested in his thought process. Does he use the same phone number to make these calls, or does he use a burner phone, or does he, is he hacked into a VoIP system at some company and is randomizing his numbers? I'm interested in how he does his business.
So I was actually able to follow back several of the phone numbers. So the phone number that he uses with or phone numbers that he uses with the customers that are impacted are actually valid phone numbers that the customer can then call back. If the customer says, I don't have time, or, I don't trust you, I need to call you back, he gives them a phone number. Those are burner numbers. And those numbers we've discovered actually come from a service that is available on cell phones that allow you to burn a number like every 5 minutes. So he can wait until he no longer needs that number, burn that number, and get a new one. And it's only about $3 a month.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Just another example of how things can be used for evil. So, all right. So after you've talked to the call center, I'm going to call them assert. I don't know if there's a specific name or a term for them, but after you guys have figured out who this person is and that you've been hit at least once or twice, I don't know if there's been previous, issues in the past. What was it like? Did you have to have a meeting of all the call center people, or did you just talk to the supervisors of the call center shifts, or how did you handle the fact that, well, this guy called, there's definitely some fraud going on, or there was some fraud? How did you guys handle that as an organization?
Well, the very first thing we did, of course, is have kind of a senior management meeting and review what had happened to figure out, where our process had failed. Then the next thing we did is using voice recognition. We went back through several months worth of calls looking for other examples from the same person. So we do know that there were other examples, at least 5 examples from the same person. He was hitting us about every 3 weeks. Wow. And it didn't get caught until, so it's funny, the fraud detection companies, when it works, it's amazingly fast and inefficient, but it's not 100%.
Right.
It's never 100% until, you have enough fraud background that they catch it. So going back through time, we were able to find multiple examples, and this gentleman's voice is very identifiable. It's very easy to for voice recognition to pick out of a lot of calls. Right. As soon as that happened, I went to the call center manager and said, we need to pull your people off the phones. Let's do it in 3 groups. Because that's about all we can fit in the conference room. So let's do it in 3 groups, and we need to go over. We need to play back this audio. We need to go over what happened and how it's not going to happen anymore. So it was kind of, even before there was a training program, it was just how do we stem the bleeding? How do we stop this? How do we quickly train people to be more resistant to this form of social engineering? So I think, our ability to bounce very quickly, literally the same day, and over a 3-day period to bring everybody in and get them trained up. And the methodology we used for very much for initial training is I pulled one of my loss prevention people aside and said, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to role play these calls. And, because my loss prevention people understand how to question people, how to do interviews, legal interviews, etc. How to be suspicious, how to interact with a bad guy. I would go in and play bad guy and they would play good guy, or I would go in and play good guy and they would play bad guy. And we could bounce multiple scenarios like this, creating a challenge response system.
Very cool. Okay. So you're a retailer, as you've mentioned before. You are 24/7 operations. So do you have US only call centers and then some overseas? And if so, how did you handle dealing with training over, if you had call centers overseas?
Fortunately for us, all of our call centers are US based.
Oh,
we only have 2. And we actually, to some extent pride ourselves on being US based call centers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a family owned kind of business, and we deal with kind of a traditional kind of crowd.
Right.
So it's not general retail. And so the call centers are US based, and fortunately the culture at the company that I'm at is such that security to some extent kind of rules the roost. We maintain, at least in an emergency situation, security maintains the ability to shut it down, shut it all down. And so if we need to pull, a third of the call center people out at a time for the rest of the day, we'll pull a third of the call center people out. And nobody's going to say boo to security, because that is what it is.
Right. Okay. Mr. Betcher, you have any questions? Because I have a couple more before we do third.
All right, go for it.
Okay. So you pulled some of your people off and you did some role playing, and I assume you went through this with all of the call center people, or just certain folks, or maybe just the folks that had been hit by this gentleman in the past?
We went through everyone. The first day we went through everyone that was on staff at the time. The next day we went through the people who weren't there for the previous, as well as some people that we felt maybe needed a little bit more help. And then the third day, we required everyone who had not been there for a previous training to show up for work so that they could go through the training. So right. over a 3-day period, we covered everyone at least once. I think almost everyone twice. There was a couple managers who, instantly understood. But other than that, I think pretty much everybody went through it twice immediately. And now we go through this process during onboarding. It's a part of our normal call center training regimen for when we bring people on. And then we also do it about once a quarter.
Okay. So does your call center people have like a FAQ or a list of answers to typical questions that get asked by a person when they call in? Do they have a decision tree? Well, it's like, person asking for a purchase order number, it goes this way. I mean, I'm trying to figure out I've never worked in a call center, so I don't know how it works, but I would think there'd be some kind of automation or like script or, some kind of decision tree that would help them. Okay, if you got stuck here or they're asking you this question, you can respond with this or whatever. Did you have to change any of those, or do they exist for you?
We do have a knowledge base. The product we sell is very technical, or the products we sell are very technical. So we do have a knowledge base, but the handling of the calls, we're not tremendously scripted. There was no changes needed to be made to the script because it's kind of free form.
Okay. Well, I know I've called some call centers, and to be fair, many of those were overseas when I was buying computers, usually from a company that rhymes with smell, that you could definitely tell that they were a bit scripted in that case. I didn't know if that was something that was, across all centers or just specific ones. And that was it for part 1 of our discussion with Anna. You're going to need to tune in next week because we have 3 more clips of audio, some of which talks, post-training, the initial training, because we talked about some of that, and also what happened after the fact. So the caller that keeps hitting the call centers, they have to create processes to halt him from doing more social engineering. So we get to talk about some of the things that they've implemented for that. So please check it out next week. So a little administrative, tasking here. We have B-Sides Birmingham. Dave Sybuck, one of our moderators, reminded me again that that's still going on. They're still looking for call for papers, which goes on until August the 11th. If you're interested in submitting there, you go to their website, which is bsidesbham.com, and you can do the call for proposals there. It's closes August 11th at 11:59 Central Time, PM, 11:59 PM, so just 1 minute before midnight on the 11th Central Time. They also have a Twitter, at bsidesbham, that's B-Sides, B as in boy, ham, Ham, and that's in B-Sides, Alabama, that's in Birmingham, Alabama, not Birmingham in the UK, so just to make sure that, nobody's getting confused. So we have Slack. Brakesec Slack's very active. If you're interested in joining us for that, there's a couple ways you can do so. We have a great community there. We have a CTF club. Our book club is reading Cult of the Dead Cow, and amongst other things on our summer reading program. You can join us by sending an email to bds.podcast@gmail.com. Or you can follow us on Twitter, which is the official podcast Twitter, at Brakesec, and send us a DM, and we will send you an invite. So we don't have a Slack bot to do that because we want to cut down on the attempts for bots or people who are just nefarious. So you may have to pass a bot check. We have a Patreon. If you found value in any of the 275 other podcasts or even this one, you feel free to drop us a tip in the tip jar. We call it tip jar more than anything else. We use it to run our hosting. We also use it to potentially sponsor, upcoming conferences that may or may not be happening. I'll tell you about that in a second. But yeah, we're available. The link is in the show notes, and we very much appreciate all of the support that our listeners give us. Like I said, goes to hosting fees, goes to paying for the Zoom that we use every week, goes for equipment upgrades, and just pretty much the time and effort needed to put out a podcast on a weekly basis. So we appreciate everybody's help in making this possible. So Ms. Berlin, you can follow her on Twitter at InfoSyster, INFOSYSTIR. She has an organization called Mental Health Hackers that she is trying to spread a little love to the hacker and InfoSec community by doing villages that you can go and learn about how to have coping mechanisms, or how to help find a good therapist, or, have some group discussion about some problems you've been having with your life, anxiety or anything like that. She calls it, kind of group therapy, but it's more like a AA kind of thing where everybody gets together and they share their feelings and they help everyone out. So it makes it so that you're not alone. So if you have a conference going on and you want to maybe have a village, go to mentalhealthhackers.org and get more information, or you can follow them on Twitter at hackershealth. Mr. Betcher, he's on Twitter at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. He also is a very busy man. He runs an application called Log-MD, and that is a Windows forensic tool. It's a logging tool that helps you set your logs in your Windows hosts to make them more useful for forensic analysis or malware detection, what have you. If you're interested, they're not a sponsor, but they should be, because we do a lot of free work for them in that respect. But if you're interested, go to log-md.com, and they have a free version. They also have a paid version if you're interested. Let me see, TPub site if you want to buy a t-shirt or a coffee mug or whatever else to help out. We actually get a little kickback from that for the podcast. So if you don't want to give a Patreon, but you want a t-shirt, we get a couple bucks from that. So it's great. There's a link in the show notes to the TPub website. You can do that. Let me see. InfoSec Camp Out. So that's the conference that I'm organizing with Matt Domko and Wendy Knox Everett. It's happening 23-24 August of 2019, which is next month, as I will mention on the next show. It's about a month from now. If you are interested, there's still camping spots available. There's also still tickets for the conference if you want to come and do that. We have a lot of great talks. They're not all blue team and red team. We have some digital forensics talks. We have some DevOps talks. We have Node.js VP of Security Adam Baldwin's going to be joining us. Brett Shavers is going to be talking about digital forensics and geolocation of devices. We have a disaster recovery and emergency kind of talk with April Marduk talking about how to make a proper go pack and how to use ham radios in event of an emergency. And we also have some mobile device management talks. A gentleman by the name Nico is going to talk about how we do MDM at home for on the cheap if you wanted to set up and make sure your children have their mobile devices being managed properly. We also have a privacy talk. Wendy Knox Everett and Jen, one of our friends in Slack, I forget the last name, I apologize, is going to be doing a privacy panel about some of the items of note in the day. So it's not going to be any set topic. So we're just going to talk about some privacy. So there's no blue team, there's no red team. It's kind of the gaps that never really get filled at most conferences. So if you're interested in any of those talks, go to infosec all one word.com. And there's an Eventbrite link. I'll be posting the schedule for Friday and Saturday on the site this weekend. And if you're interested, come join us. So that's it for the week. If you are interested in other episodes, go back and check us out, brakingsecurity.com, BRAKEING security.com. And that was it. So have a great week. This is Brian from Breaking Down Security Headquarters. Be kind to one another. Take care of yourselves because you're the only you have, and we'll talk to you again soon.